Well, Iraqi state television now reporting that troops have driven ISIS from a critical part of an oil town that is very important to that country. It is home to Iraq's largest oil refinery, and it's under siege by ISIS since the month of June. Of course, oil is a huge source of revenue for the terrorists there. That refinery is just outside of Beji. That's 150 miles north of Baghdad. In the meantime, more U.S. troops are headed to Iraq. Joining us now is Mark Dubowitz. He's executive director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Good afternoon to you. I want to start out by asking you about this town of Beji. And this is in part significant because, as I understand it, if the Iraqis can hold Beji for now, it could be a staging ground to take back to Crete. Of course, that was Saddam Hussein's hometown that was taken over by ISIS this summer. How significant is this?
Well, it's very significant, Heather. I mean, again, for the reasons you articulated. And it also shows at least some early successes, and it provides a predicate for some further aggressive action against ISIS. Again, this is a battle of perceptions. It's a battle of who the strong horse is, who the weak horse is. And for months, ISIS has been on the offensive, gaining territory and slaughtering its opponents. This would be a potential reversal of that momentum.
Now, do you buy it when our president now says that we are ready, or the Iraqis are ready to now go on the offensive?
I don't think the Iraqis are ready. I think certainly we've invested billions of dollars and years in training the Iraqi forces. They clearly have failed to fight ISIS, and we've seen some serious battlefield losses. It's going to take, again, American boots on the ground. We call them advisors right now. The reality is these are Americans who are going to be having to provide the kind of support they used to provide to Iraq before the president precipitously pulled U.S. troops out of that country.
You know, a lot of folks in the military are concerned about what they call mission creep. Do you see that happening?
I think mission creep is exactly the right term and the right problem. Again, the president has talked about having no American boots on the ground. He pulled American soldiers out of Iraq against the best advice of Hillary Clinton and Leon Panetta, David Petraeus, and Robert Gates. And now he's finding himself in a serious predicament where he's having to put back troops back into Iraq and call them advisors. Well, when the bullet starts flying, those advisors are pretty quickly going to become combat troops.
Yeah, they're going to have to shift gears pretty quickly. I want to ask you about something that's happening in Egypt. There is a terror group there called Ansar al-Makdis, and they have now pledged their allegiance to ISIS. Our viewers want to know that these guys have been beheading people in Egypt. They've also been going after Egyptian military as well as police. How concerned are you about this new link, this expansion, if you will, of ISIS?
Very concerned. I mean, this is a group that's been active in the Sinai bordering Egypt and Israel. As you said, they've been slaughtering Egyptian troops. They've been representing a significant security threat to the Israelis as well. And again, you're seeing these jihadist groups, ISIS-related groups, springing up in many places. And you're seeing ISIS-inspired terrorist attacks taking place in countries like the United States and now getting close to Israel's border. So radical jihadism is on the march, and all of these dots are connected.
Yeah, okay. While I have you here, I want to ask you about something that hasn't gotten a whole lot of attention lately, but it is a major story. It's coming out of Israel. Israel now tightening its security after several deadly attacks have taken place. A Palestinian had stabbed a 20-year-old soldier at a train station in Tel Aviv yesterday. That soldier later died, and then 3 people were stabbed at a bus stop that was next to a West Bank settlement. One of them was a 25-year-old Israeli woman. And then this, of course, after last week, a Hamas militant slammed a minivan into a crowd of people as they were waiting for a train that killed at least 1 person. This thing just goes on. And now the Palestinian Authority, through its social media accounts, is encouraging Palestinians to use their vehicles as terror weapons. Where do you see this going?
Well, again, Heather, all the dots are connected. I mean, this is another example of social media inspired jihadist attacks. We just heard a report about an attack in New York City where a jihadist swung an axe at 2 NYPD officers. Now you're seeing these lone wolf, quote-unquote, lone wolf attacks taking place in Israel, again, inspired by social media, inspired by the incitement that's coming out of the Palestinian Authority and by Hamas. And you're seeing a new wave of terrorist attacks in Israel which are deeply concerning because this is not just terrorists coming from the West Bank and Gaza. These are Israeli Arabs and Jerusalemites who live in Jerusalem who are unfortunately being perceived increasingly by the Israeli public as sleeper cells who could use their vehicles or knives at any time to kill Israelis.
Yeah, and they're not just going after the military, they're going after civilians as well. A little baby died last week. Mark Dubowitz, thank you so much for your expertise on this. We'll talk to you again.
Thanks so much, Heather.